Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Yes, good, great. Uh, yes, the first expression of gratitude I'd like to make is for the invitation to be with you all today. I am really very happy to have the opportunity. Um, and maybe someday I'll visit Nebraska. I've never been to Nebraska. Um, the talk I'm giving today is on a topic that, it's always with us, gratitude. It's one of our basic teachings in Buddhism. But 2 years ago, as we were beginning the new year here in Austin, it presented itself very clearly, at least to me. We were about a full year into the pandemic at that point. Remember the pandemic? And we were on Zoom. Everyone was on Zoom, and everyone had been isolating, for most of a year. And we didn't know when it was going to end. It seemed unimaginable that it had gone on for so long, and there was no end in sight. At that point, there were really no vaccines yet. They were coming, but not available, and almost no treatments, effective treatments. And people were dying, suffering and dying. So we began the new year with a talk from our then head teacher, Mako Volkel. And she remarked on how Zen temples, traditionally mark the new year. I don't know what you do there, but in Austin, we've maintained this very Japanese, these Japanese practices of cleaning the temple, eating noodles, soba noodles at midnight, that they represent long life, and sitting zazen, and then renewing our vows in the Bodhisattva ceremony, and ringing the temple bell 108 times. All of these, things that really mark a transition to a new year. And then we toast the new year when midnight arrives, and have a bonfire, and we write down the states of mind and other what would appear to be impediments that we wish we could let go of, and burn them in the bonfire together with the names of people we've had memorial services for sutra cards that have been worn out or in some way stained or torn. So it's like out with the old and in with the new. And Mako spoke of resolutions and of why we do or don't make them, why we do or don't keep them. And one of the things she mentioned was a talk that Dogen, our founder of Japanese Soto Zen, a talk that he gave to his monks, his Sangha, on the occasion of a new year. And in one of these talks, he cited the koan, "Is there Buddha Dharma in the new year?" And so after these remarks from Mako, we as the Sangha talked about how we are always looking for a kind of line that if we can just get across this line, things will be different. And I think that's why we have all these New Year's practices. Things will be different, whether it's the new year or a promotion, making a move, and election, something, right? If we can just get to this new line and get across it, things will be better. And we talked about how arbitrary these benchmarks are, really, these things that we hold on to, hoping for change, and how often they disappoint us. So is there Buddha Dharma in the new year was how we started 2021. For me, personally, 2021 brought several shocks in addition to the pandemic and everything else that was happening. The first of those was that I heard that an old friend, Christina, whom I'd known for about 30 years, had been diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. She just had begun to exhibit symptoms, and the diagnosis was dire, as it often is with pancreatic cancer. And Christina had already experienced a great bodily trauma 17 years before that. At the age of 50, she had crashed her bike and severed her spine, leaving her in a wheelchair and essentially quadriplegic for the rest of her life. And when I knew her, she was one of the most vital, energetic, smart, clear, and incisive people I knew. And the entire community that worked together with us was so shocked by this accident. And Christina faced this injury with great courage and determination to remain active as a scholar and teacher. She was an academic. And then 17 years later, pancreatic cancer. And a few days only after hearing the news of the diagnosis, I then got the news that she had died. So she died very quickly after the diagnosis. And honestly, I was stunned. It seemed so hard, so very hard to accept that this person had two such terrible things happen, both of which were devastating. And the strange thing for me was that just before I had heard about her diagnosis, I suddenly noticed her book. She had written a memoir about her experience after her injury, the experience of inhabiting a new and alien body. And I noticed this book sitting in a large bookcase in my home, and I really don't know why I noticed it. It had been there for quite some time. Many months after I put it there, suddenly it leapt out at me. And then after I heard about her diagnosis, I came across this card, which I think it's probably reading backwards to you. It says gratitude. Um, this card, which I received in a year-end mailing from San Francisco Zen Center. I thought I'd lost that card actually, but then it showed up in a pile of stuff I hadn't really organized. So it seemed like the universe was talking to me. Christina's book, this gratitude card. And coincidentally, or maybe not coincidentally in the way of these things, this card was sent out by San Francisco Zen Center shortly after the death of its abbot, Myogen Steve Stuckey. And Myogen died a short time after a diagnosis of, yes, stage 4 pancreatic cancer. So all of these coincidences seem to be saying something. The card says gratitude. And gratitude was one of Myogen's core practices. After his diagnosis of cancer, with, as it turned out, only months to live, he gave a talk to the San Francisco Zen Center community in which he announced his diagnosis with great calm and even some humor, and with courage, and amazingly, with curiosity. Like, what is this? And in the talk, he said that he had for a while been, before the diagnosis, been waking up and immediately saying the first thing that came to mind, which was gratitude. This just spontaneously arose in him. And so since he'd had this diagnosis, the question that was now arising for him was gratitude for what, right? And whatever it was, the what was the thing at that moment. So he said in the talk, pancreatic cancer is the thing to be grateful for now. Abbot Steve said, this life is completely beyond judgment or preference. And this turned out to be his last Dharma talk, by the way. Now, this is quite some practice, to be grateful for pancreatic cancer and to realize the truth of this life being completely beyond judgment or preference. And just one more personal story, please indulge me. As I was coming to the realization that I wanted to think and talk about gratitude a year or more ago, almost 2 years ago now, and it was the day after I heard about my friend Christina's death, the Capitol was stormed. And the day after that, Sojun Mel Weitzman, the former abbot of San Francisco Zen Center and the abbot of Berkeley Zen Center, he passed from this life after a diagnosis of bile duct cancer. And so, yeah, it seemed like a lot. And I wanted to understand Myogen's practice of gratitude for all of these things. So here we are 2 years later. People are dying. Our friends and our teachers are dying. Your teacher, founding teacher, has recently passed. My condolences. And our society is reeling from delusion and violence. So what about gratitude now? Somehow in 2021, gratitude is what emerged as the Buddha Dharma of the new year for me. But how can we be grateful for a 2-year-long pandemic, or almost 3 years now, for cancer, for violence? So often it seems that gratitude is trivialized, reduced to a t-shirt slogan or a greeting card sentiment that we can become cynical or jaded about. Or it becomes overworked like mindfulness, right? Or co-opted like mindfulness by the corporate world. It isn't alive as practice. Zenke Blanche Hartman, who is a founder of our temple in Austin, taught gratitude as an experience, not a sentiment. So how can we experience gratitude rather than just sentimentalize it? Now, the Buddha taught gratitude. He talked about it as a necessary aspect of a person of integrity. In several suttas, the Buddha talked about a person of integrity and how to recognize integrity or lack of it in a person. He said, now what is the level of a person of no integrity? A person of no integrity is ungrateful and unthankful. That's how you can tell that they have no integrity. He said, this ingratitude, this lack of thankfulness, is advocated by rude people. It is entirely on the level of people of no integrity. A person of integrity is grateful and thankful. This gratitude and thankfulness is advocated by civil people, and it is entirely on the level of a people of integrity. So he very much emphasized gratitude. And this immediately brought up for me the first paramita, or virtue, which is of giving, one of the practices of a bodhisattva, in which we practice complete generosity with no expectations. So gratitude doesn't expect a return. It simply arises spontaneously for whatever appears. And as a way of teaching gratitude, the Buddha used parents, human beings' parents, a human person's parents. And he said, I tell you, monks, there are two people who are not easy to repay. Which two? Your mother and father. He says, even if you were to carry your mother on one shoulder and your father on the other shoulder for 100 years, and were to look after them by anointing and massaging and bathing and rubbing their limbs, you would not in that way repay or repay your parents. If you were to establish your mother and father in absolute sovereignty over this great earth, abounding in the 7 treasures, you would not in that way pay or repay your parents. Why is that? Mother and father do much for their children. They care for them, they nourish them, they introduce them to this world. But anyone who rouses his unbelieving mother and father, settles and establishes them in conviction, rouses his unvirtuous mother and father, and settles and establishes them in virtue, and so on and so forth, and all these positive attributes. He says, to the extent that one does this, one pays and repays one's mother and father. So the Buddha, of course, is talking to monks who have renounced the world and renounced their worldly connections. And he tells them that true gratitude and generosity is sharing the Dharma with your parents and with all beings for that matter, and not only in taking care of their physical needs. And in this way, focused on just these two people who bring us into the world, he says, essentially, I'm paraphrasing him, we repay the universe, expressed through our parents for our existence, which is unasked for and is a gift. And of course, we can all think of examples of parents who are stingy or foolish or self-centered or self and other destructive, bad parents, parents we would never choose if we had a choice. But without them, no us. So this leads to us to widen our realization of gratitude through the gift of our existence, which saves sentient beings. In the Brahma Net Sutra, it is said that a disciple of the Buddha should have a mind of compassion and cultivate the practice of liberating sentient beings. A disciple must reflect this, Throughout the eons of time, all male sentient beings have been my father, all female sentient beings my mother. If a bodhisattva sees an animal on the verge of being killed, they must devise a way to rescue and protect it, helping it to escape suffering and death. The disciple should always teach the bodhisattva precepts to rescue and deliver sentient beings. So, as with metta practice, constantly widening our circle of understanding, connection, and the incredible way in which everything arises through everything else. Our Japanese founder, Dogen Zenji, continually expressed his gratitude for the teaching and for all beings. As Taigen Leighton says, Dogen did see the necessity for awakened realization of receiving support and strength from a variety of external, so-called other sources, and the importance of sincere devotional gratitude to these benefactors. And by here, Taigen means that we do not accomplish the way solely by our own efforts. He goes on to say, Dogen regularly expresses deep gratitude to all the Buddhas and ancestors for transmitting the teaching and invokes their support for current practice. The Buddhas and ancestors become included in our family, like our parents and all of our personal ancestors. And our practice of Zazen is their practice. Dogen specifically widens the family, these intimate connections. In a poem he wrote, "Those who stray around in delusion, here and there within the 6 realms, are actually my fathers and my mothers." We all stray around the 6 realms in our delusion. So in other words, for Dogen, all deluded people are our parents, as intimate as that. We are in an interdependent relationship with them, even the unskilled and deluded. In Shobogenzo Zuimonki, Dogen makes this particularly explicit. And again, returning to monks and their relationship with their families. He says, monks abandon their debt of gratitude and enter the realm of non-doing or non-duality. It's mu-i in Japanese. Within the family of non-doing, excuse me, the manner of paying off the debt of gratitude should not be limited to one particular person. Considering that we have debts of gratitude to all living beings, just as we do to our fathers and mothers, we must transmit all the merits of our good deeds throughout the Dharma world. We don't limit this dedication specifically to our own parents in just this lifetime. This is the way we do not go against the way of non-doing, mu-i. In our continuous day-to-day practice and moment-to-moment study, simply following the Buddha way is the true way of fulfilling our filial piety. We should see that our debts of gratitude to all living beings are as important as the debt to our own parents. I want to return to the Abbot Steve from San Francisco Zen Center. In that last talk, he also quoted Dogen, who said, "The entire earth is the true human body. This entire earth is another source of the other power for Dogen. The world is a Buddha field for us because we're in a mutual interconnected relationship with all beings, with all things, with all dharmas." Dogen regards the phenomenal world as awakened awareness, a dynamic, living force unfolding Buddha nature. This is the most profound understanding of the Bodhisattva path. Zenki Hartman came to her most immediate understanding and experience of gratitude when she realized, or when she saw, the shoots of daffodils coming up in the early spring at Tassajara Monastery. She said about that vision, that experience, here was effort without desire right in front of me, non-doing, right? Just letting the flower of life force bloom right here, right now, wholeheartedly and with nothing held back, giving ourselves completely to whatever arises right in front of us, moment after moment. So in this way, wholehearted living is an expression of deepest gratitude, whatever comes. In facing his fate, which is sooner or later all of our fates, Abbot Myogen said, "We are signing up for grief, for loss, signing up for being a human being, beyond any dualism of this and that, of me and you. What is helpful? What is called for? There is no help in the usual sense, certainly not for stage 4 pancreatic cancer. What is left is expressing fully each moment, not trying to cut off anything, to deeply consider how to take care of this moment, this part that's in the realm of care. But it's always an expression of completeness beyond birth and death as separate things." This is what Abbot Steve wanted to tell us as he faced his illness, the devastating news, which he knew devastated everyone. He taught his gratitude, and in so doing, he took care of everything. So is there Buddha Dharma in the new year or at any time? Can it be gratitude? Can we move beyond just enumerating the things we are grateful for, which I hear often? I'm grateful for shelter. I'm grateful for having food. For some of us, grateful not to have COVID. Can we move beyond listing what we're grateful for to really experiencing gratitude as the truth of Buddha nature, completely connected, no self, no other? The truth of Buddha nature as impermanence. We could live each day as New Year's Day, a new and unrepeatable day, an unrepeatable moment as the new year. Blanche Hartman said, quoting Suzuki Roshi, and this is a favorite quote, "Just to be alive is enough." So am I grateful, as in happy, that my friend Christina died as she did? I am not happy, but I am grateful for Christina. I'm grateful to Christina for showing me impermanence. I'm grateful for the inconceivable causes and conditions that brought us together. I am grateful that I met Sojin Roshi, Mel Weitzman, and he was among my teachers. He is among my teachers, right? He is not dead, but alive in all of us. And I am grateful for the ungrateful people of no integrity who present themselves to us every day and show us what no integrity and integrity both can look like. They help to teach us. I'm grateful that the last half dozen years, or the last 400 years, as they manifest here and now, teach us about the truth of no separation in our country, that everyone is our mother and father, that everyone is Sangha, and the great earth is the true human body. Myogen closed his final talk with this teaching. He expressed what Dogen taught as giving, so closely related to gratitude, beyond judgment, as our enlightened and enlightening activity. This is a favorite quote of mine from Dogen. He said, "If you study giving closely, you see that to accept a body and to give up the body are both giving. Making a living and producing things can be nothing other than giving. To leave flowers to the wind, to leave birds to the seasons, are also acts of giving." So thank you, Christina. Thank you, Sojin. Thank you, Abbot Steve. Gratitude for this unasked for, unrepeatable life in all its impermanence. It is inseparable from everything we love and hate, everything we fear and hold close. And I'd like to close with a poem by W.S. Merwin, a great teacher, and it's called Thanks. Some of you may know it. Merwin wrote, "Listen, with the night falling, we are saying thank you. We are stopping on the bridges to bow from the railings. We are running out of the glass rooms with our mouths full of food to look at the sky and say thank you. We are standing by the water and thanking it, standing by the windows, looking out in our directions, back from a series of hospitals, back from a mugging, After funerals, we are saying thank you. After the news of the dead, whether or not we knew them, we are saying thank you. Over telephones, we are saying thank you in doorways and in the backs of cars and in elevators, remembering wars and the police at the door and the beatings on stairs. Thank you. In the banks, we are saying thank you in the faces of the officials and the rich and of all who will never change. We go on saying thank you, thank you. With the animals dying around us, taking our feelings, we are saying thank you. With the forests falling faster than the minutes of our lives, we are saying thank you. With the words going out like cells of a brain, with the cities growing over us, we are saying thank you faster and faster. With nobody listening, we are saying thank you. Thank you, we are saying, and waving, dark though it is. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was wonderful talk. Do you have time to take any questions or comments from the group here? Anyone have any questions? Yeah.
Something that came up for me is talking, was reflecting on in the Tibetan traditions, there's a practice of visualizing all sentient beings as having been our mothers. And so like there's the refrain of mother sentient beings, things like that. And there's one Tibetan teacher named Sogyal Rinpoche who I read stressed with Westerners not to do that practice, but instead to visualize sentient beings as having been our grandfathers or grandmothers. And I read not too long ago that Dogen, I believe, also talked about grandmother mind.
Yes.
So I was wondering if maybe you would share something about that.
I'm not sure why Sogyal Rinpoche said not to do that practice, but some of these things have certain cultural resonances. And I certainly know that many people do not have functional families, have extremely difficult relationships with their families, had abusive childhoods, and it may not be very skillful or helpful to them, especially as an initial practice, to try to find gratitude. I think it's more the paradigm of the relationship, which may not actually, may not be actualized in a particular individual's life, but of, that kind of selfless caring that is a kind of, paradigm of parenthood, motherhood or fatherhood. Yes, and grandmother minds is one of the three minds that Dogen espouses. Especially, it's the mind of the Tenzo, the head of kitchen practice, who just slaves away all day to feed everybody, and without complaining accepts whatever ingredients are there to make a meal with, dedicating their labor for the benefit of the monks. So grandmother mind, the mind of maybe spoiling your grandchildren, you know, and a settled mind, somebody who's a mature person and is able to express completely the joy of caring for the next generation. So again, these are maybe culturally specific examples that don't always ring true for us now, but give us a sense of what's possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
I see another hand.
This is Pam.
Okay.
Your talk, it reminded me of yesterday when some of us met with a friend of ours who's facing a dire prognosis. And he was talking to me on the way home, and he said that when he got his, his prognosis, this diagnosis, that he started thinking of all the things, the things he wanted to do within that time. And then he said, but over time, I've realized that it's really the ordinary moments that have all the magic in them. And he was clearly expressing and feeling, gratitude for every little mundane thing in daily life. So interesting timing for me.
Yeah. Today is also 9/11,
Mhm.
uh, and a lot has happened since that day 21 years ago. But I think the poem by Merwin, always comes back to me on this particular anniversary. And of course, it's just one thing that happened to here in the United States, and terrible things happen every day, everywhere. But again, it's a chance to focus on, it happened. It can happen to us. It does happen to us. It happen. We're all, you know, faced with terrible things, personal things, societal things, war. You know, I mean, I don't need to run through the list for you. So how do we be thankful for this life? I mean, one thing I sometimes remember and tell my own song when things seem really, like, how do we go on is, Dogen established his monastery, Heiji, basically fleeing, you know, famine and violence and rivals. He went up into the mountains to find a place of refuge and safety. And it's always been like this, it's always been like this. Uh, there's always been terrible things happening. So, how do we find awakening in the midst of what seems unbearable? Tara, I see you.
Yeah,
Oh,
Pat.
can you see me?
Oh,
Hi.
sorry, one more person.
Yes.
Yeah, can you see me? Hello, my name is Patch. This is my first time at Open Zen, and the fact that you talked about this is really, it's serendipitous. So less than a year ago in 2021, my mother was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer, and she died in November. And I had to completely abandon my life where I was in Tampa, Florida, to move back up there to care for her. So we have the caring aspect, we have the mother things, we have the loss, and then now we come here to Nebraska to start a life anew, and this comes up. So it's the first Dharma talk I see here, it's you, and it's completely on point. So thank you so much.
Good luck to you. Thank you for taking care of your mother. And yeah, there are no coincidences, so somehow the universe sometimes just comes together like this. My sister is currently caring for our 95-year-old stepmother in Pennsylvania and has totally upended her life to do that. So yeah, it's all around us, and it's not separate, from life. We think, oh, this terrible thing that's happened, but actually, you know, it's one seamless thing, but it doesn't make it easy. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And you found a good place, I'm sure, to land.
Anyone else? Oh, hi.
Hi, I'm Jaime. I had a question about discernment
Mm.
with gratitude. You got to a point where you were saying grateful for what, right? And so, for example, you had there was the Dharma talk where they opened out saying, "Well, I'm grateful for this condition," right? So that might seem a little strange to be saying, but and then a little later on in this Dharma talk here, you were saying how you were grateful for somebody who had passed, but in that moment, it was almost as if you were about to say you were grateful for them dying, but maybe you're not, maybe you are. But I guess I'm wondering, are we being called to be grateful for everything, at least in the past? And so maybe you didn't say because it would come off maybe clunky to say so. But I guess that's what I'm wondering. Are we called to be grateful for everything, at least previously? I know things in the future yet to be seen, more or less out of our control, but things that have happened, they're said and done.
In the realm of just our everyday human lives, it can seem a lot to say, I'm grateful, that my friend died, or I'm grateful that I have this diagnosis of stage 4 pancreatic cancer. or I'm grateful for any of the terrible things that come to us, or even not just terrible. It's, this is the truth of dukkha, right? Of getting what we don't want and not being okay with it. So that's the first noble truth, right? Life is dukkha, which we often translate as suffering, but it means something like unsatisfactoriness. So it can be something kind of trivial. I wanted chocolate ice cream and they were out, so I had to accept vanilla. It's like, this is not what I wanted, right? It's like our constant state. So it's linked to all these other states like equanimity and generosity, the way a bodhisattva cultivates, the way. So I would never say, oh, you should be grateful, that someone has died. But I think after the initial shock, of loss, which is human to feel, that we can understand these of what seem like events as a continuum, as part of a whole. That there's no birth without death, there's no life without death. And I think it's a really, what Myogen said, to sign up for living means to accept loss as part of the deal, right? It's not like, oh, I shouldn't have I shouldn't have to suffer this loss. We wouldn't appreciate life without death. We wouldn't understand life without death. So, more like it's one thing. It's all one thing. And we suffer because we always struggle with the truth of impermanence. Dogen taught that impermanence is Buddha nature, right? So can we harmonize with that? Maybe not right away, but like, yeah, this is what we all sign up for. What we'll all experience, what everything experiences, is just nothing but transformation and change endlessly. Yeah. And so we step back from our individual experience of loss and grief and, try to merge with this greater truth. And harmonizing with that is the end of suffering.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very nice. Anyone else?
Hera, did you still have a question? She's online.
Yeah.
Hey, Choro, thank you so much for your talk today. I'm very grateful. I don't think that I have much to add. I think some of the points that I was thinking of bringing up were brought up by others. I will say one of the images that came to mind as you were speaking was the Banksy painting of the guy throwing the bouquet of flowers. And it made me think a little bit, along with some of your words, just about our agency. Gratitude feels a lot like a medicine in life, kind of a salve. And how can we use skillful means to, throw the bouquet of flowers at our grief and our fear? I don't know if you'd have anything to say about that, but that was what came up for me.
Yeah. I don't know if I have anything to add, if I had not thought of Banksy, but that's a great image. Yeah. I just think about, I think this is one reason why people have all these rituals around grief is it's a way of expressing something beyond just, no, 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 and coming together with other people, offering flowers, offering words. We just had a big memorial service for a longtime Sangha member here whom actually I didn't know. I've only been in Austin for 2.5 years, but it was mobbed, and I was the presiding priest, and the feeling of it was of healing, but also just of coming together to share our common, what's the word, plight, right? That we're going to lose things. We're going to lose people. We're going to lose our own health. We're going to lose our own, we're going to lose our minds, some of us. No one wants that. But, how to embrace it as reality, right? So yeah, if you are faced with something that's difficult, throw your bouquet. Yeah. Offer your flowers.
I think we have one more question back here. actually, that question answered my question, so it all worked out. Yes, it was. Yeah,
That's how it happens sometimes. Yeah.
yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Well,
you so much.
thank you so much. I wish you all very well. I know you're in a period of transition, and Austin has been through a similar transition recently. So, best of luck to you. And yeah, may the Dharma thrive where you are and everywhere.
Thank you. We'll
Thank you.
close with a closing chant.
The many beings are numberless, vowing to carry them across.
The many beings are numberless, vowing to carry them across.
Greed, anger, and ignorance rise endlessly, vowing to cut off the mind road.
Greed, anger, and ignorance rise endlessly, vowing to cut off the mind road.
Dharma gates are countless, vowing to wake to them all.
Dharma gates are countless, vowing to wake them all.
Buddha's way is all embracing, vowing to follow through.
Buddha